Forging cyber security experts. SecureNinja.
SecureNinja is excited to announce our new line of video training courses we're calling the Online Sensei Series. These are on-demand classes available 24/7, 365 at your convenience and taught by the best instructors in cybersecurity. Here's a complimentary taste of our new exclusive Red Team hacking course, developed and taught by SecureNinja's Chief Security Architect, Kevin Cardwell. Red Team hacking will teach you the skills, techniques, and proven methodology of how to set up and become a Red Team member. And now, here's Kevin with the introduction module to Red Team hacking. Enjoy!
Hello, and welcome to Red Team Hacking. I'm Kevin Cardwell, and I'm the one that created this Red Team Hacking course. And what it is it's based on my experiences of being in a red team for 6 years and a leader of a red team for that 6 years. And what we did is we had a 100% success rate at compromising systems. So we go through in this CBT, we show you the techniques and the motives and how to set up to be a red team member. What we're trying to do is show you that red teaming is 100% offensive. That is, you're going to do exploitation, you're going to break in, you're going to do things like that, and have a lot of fun. And with red team hacking, we give you the step-by-step methodology and process that is proven over 20 years of testing experience that I have and used by a lot of red teams that are available around the world. So we hope you enjoy this, and let's get to it. Let's get to red team hacking. Welcome to SecureNinja's Red Team Hacking, CBT. You probably wondering what a red team is. A red team is a purely offensive attack team that just tries to break in. The only goal of a red team is to compromise or break in to the client. The first thing we want to talk about with respect to the red team hacking is the overview of ethical hacking. What exactly is ethical hacking? A lot of people think that ethical hacking does not exist, but in fact it does. So in this module, we're going to explain why it is important to do ethical hacking and what exactly ethical hacking is. So we have some objectives. We want to define ethical hacking, compare the differences between malicious and ethical hackers, identify the hacking mindset, review security testing, because a component of red team is security testing, and explore why ethical hacking is needed, and finally, identify the components in the team concepts for red team hacking. So what is ethical hacking? It's applying the motives and techniques of the attacker. It's the exact same thing as the attacker uses. You use the same tools, the same techniques. The one difference is you have authorization to do what you do. You're performing a process and methodology that emulates an attacker. It's the adage that to catch a thief, you have to think like a thief. Malicious versus ethical hacking. It's the same tools, the same process, the same methodology. The only difference is permission, and that permission's in writing. It's recommended that you get that permission from a CIO or above. The hacking mindset. This is a different perspective from what people are used to. This is because a hacker's sole goal is to break in and crack or break something to get access. A programmer's mindset is to build something to make it work. This is the traditional approach. As programmers, we just want it to work and continue on to our next project. We have to change that. We have to change it to the hacking mindset. That is, my goal is to break it and break in, and that's all there is in an attacker's goal, is to break in. Hackers find ways to test limits and extremes. They think about things the way programmers never did. So when you start doing your ethical hacking, and therefore your red team hacking, you have to start thinking from the mindset of breaking it. You just want to break it. You don't want to stay within a limit or any boundary. You want to break out of that boundary and test it to the extreme. So we do this as part of what we call security plans. We have an audit, which is pretty much a paperwork drill. This is your compliance with different standards. You have a lot of different standards out there. You have accreditations, follow a standard or guideline to meet a level or a standard. You have PCI DSS for the payment card industry. You have DIACAP for the Department of Defense and their networks. And you have their ISO 27001, which is an international standard on security compliance. All of these is part of what we call security plans. From the hacking standpoint, we want to break any type of compliance standard by breaking the limit or the boundary of that standard. So we also have what's called a vulnerability assessment. A vulnerability assessment is identifying weaknesses in systems and/or the networks. Then we have what we call penetration testing, and that is validation of the found vulnerabilities. In a penetration test, all we're trying to do is validate a vulnerability that we find and gain access to a system. A red team methodology and a red team hacking, it's really penetration testing. That is, we're just trying to break in. Our sole goal is to break in. It's not professional penetration testing or licensed penetration testing because we're not producing a professional report or an analysis of a security assessment. Our goal is to break in, tell the client how we broke in, and help them mitigate the risk of how we broke in. So what's the role of an ethical hacker? We could be a disgruntled employee. That's inside the network. The danger here is they've already authenticated. We can be an insider that's not authenticated. We could be an insider just walking around an organization. This is part of what social engineering is, those types of things. They're not authenticated, but they're inside. And most organizations do not protect the insides of their networks very well. Or we can be an outsider. On the outside, no access except for the general internet or services that the organization allows. And this is the main motif of the red team hacker. The red team hacker usually is going to attack from the outside, external. Very rarely as a red team member will you go on site. You can, but it's more common to play the role of an actual outside external threat or an external attacker. We have two categories of outsiders. We have unstructured. These are common, highly skilled, but not significantly financially backed. This is the difference today. We have a lot of hackers out there that are backed by nation states, governments, and a lot of entities that have a lot of what we want to call deep financial backings and deep pockets. So this is a structured attack. It's rare because these deep financial resources usually don't go after an ethical hacker type of role. If they want to get in, they're going to get in. They know about vulnerabilities way before any of us in the public do, and they pretty much have access into systems in different times because of these vulnerabilities. These are some of the well-publicized attacks you've heard about and are very difficult to prevent. They know about the weaknesses before the general public does. So what's the target of an ethical hacker? Emulation of the medium knowledge attacker and below. What that is you want to emulate the skill sets of somebody who has a medium level of knowledge. That is, you're not going to write a bunch of code, you're not going to write your own exploits, and you're not typically going to do anything that comes to hacking for reverse engineering, those types of things. This is pretty more sophisticated skill set. Most of us as ethical hackers or red team hackers are going to emulate a medium level threat. So what that means is we're not going to do reverse engineering, we're not going to write our own exploits, we're mainly going to use what's called exploit frameworks. That's not a bad thing because the exploit frameworks are very powerful and makes it much easier to do the attacks today. So most of your hackers that you're emulating are going to use the exploit framework tools anyway. Once you've done that and you've emulated that, then you might go after the more structured high-level threat. It's not easy to do because it takes a significant amount of time and resources. And most contracts or most clients you work for are not going to give you the amount of time you need to emulate that structured level threat. In reality, we implement the controls for once the attacker gets in. And that's kind of the mindset most people have. Until they get targeted, until they have a large financial loss, they're not going to usually put out the necessary time that you need to emulate that high level threat. Therefore, more than likely, we emulate a medium skill set attacker and below. So why do we do ethical hacking? In short, we need to emulate the other side. It's offensive security. It's the mindset of the attacker. It's not thinking about things of how to defend it. It's thinking about how to break it and how to attack it. And there's one very important thing here when you're on offense. All we have to do is find one way in, and we win. This is the challenge and the problem on the defensive side. They have to secure every possible way in. This is the challenge and why offense usually is ahead of defense in most cases. The perspective, the sole purpose of getting in. We're just trying to break into the environment. We're going to practice the motive and techniques of the black hat community. We want to emulate the threat of the attackers so we know how they can break in, so we know how to defend it. So if we get into hacking tools from a red team hacking team standpoint, a red team hacker, there's too many. There's just way too many hacking tools out there. If you go to like Certified Ethical Hacker or things like that, that's great because you go through all these tools. They teach you all these different tools. But reality is, as a red team hacker, you're going to pick a few and learn them the best. You need to know that tool as well as you know the alphabet, how to use that tool, how to read, those types of things. This is the power of understanding your tools, because the more you understand the process and methodology of breaking in and hacking, that gives you more time to learn your tools. What do you need? You need a port scanner. A port scanner is going to show you the way in, the ports that are open. Think of a port as a door on a machine. We have to have a door to get in. We need a vulnerability scanner. Vulnerability scanner can look and help us find vulnerabilities, but they are limited, as you will find out. A packet crafter. This is because if we use a tool, more than likely there's a signature written for that tool. So we need to use a packet crafter to deviate our techniques to look different than they would as a normal signature. Then the exploit frameworks, and we're going to talk about several of them coming up, but the exploit frameworks are key because we can't go write in our own exploits in most cases. There are people out there that write their exploits, but there's not that many. And most of us as red team hackers, we might write a few exploits, but our job is to break in. We'd rather take an exploit that already exists, if there is one, and then use that to break in. If one doesn't exist, then we have a choice. We either move on and document that we found a vulnerability, we can't validate it because there's not an exploit, or then we might make the case to write our own exploits. But as a red team hacker, usually you're going to use what exists because you just don't have time to be writing your own exploits when you're testing thousands and thousands of targets. The operating system. Unix and Linux based are the best. It's unfortunate that a lot of people think that when you do professional hacking, you can sit down on a Windows machine and do it. Yes, there are tools on the Windows machine, but if you have a Unix or Linux machine, that's usually where the tools start out at. So let's give an example. Let's say a new tool comes out on the market. Let's call it Hacker Joe. Hacker Joe comes out on the market, a nice little tool that's emulating its Unix Linux. It's probably 6 months to a year, probably 6 months at least, before Hacker Joe gets ported to a Windows platform. Guess what? That's not a stable port. So it takes about another 6 months for Hacker Joe to be stable on a Windows platform. So in reality, you're 6 months to a year behind the person who knows how to use Unix and Linux and knows how to use the Hacker Joe platform. That's why when we do red team hacking, we predominantly are going to do it from a Unix or Linux machine. Because most hackers, especially medium level threat and the skill set we're trying to emulate, is going to come from a Unix or Linux machine. Yes, don't get me wrong. There's some Windows tools that we might use, like Cain Enable, some of the other types of tools, but the majority of what we use is going to be on a Unix or a Linux platform. And that will separate you from the masses of people out there who we call script kiddies, who are just running a bunch of tools and doing their hacking. So what's some of the hacking tools that we would use? Nmap's our top open source scanner. It's the main one we're going to use to look at what's there. It gives us operating system detection and a lot of other features. So it's a really great tool to have in our toolkit. Then we like to use what's called Netcat. Netcat's written by a guy named Hobbit. And Netcat's what we call the Swiss Army knife. It's the Swiss Army knife because it can put anything to a port, sending it in. It can bind or connect to a port listening there, so when you connect to it, code will run. And it can connect like a telnet platform. It can do a lot of really cool stuff, which is why we call it our Swiss Army knife. And then we got Nikto. It's a nice free open source scanner for web application testing. It's a nice quick little one to use. We got another one we'll use called W3AF. There's other tools. And then exploit tools. The main framework we're going to use is Metasploit because it's for the most part free. It's been purchased by Rapid7 now, but it still has a free version or community version available. And then you have a Metasploit Pro, which you have to pay an actual commercial license fee for. And there's other tools out there, but they're pretty expensive. And most of us, when we're doing red team hacking, especially if we're doing it on our own, we're going to take the free and open source tools. Why? Because the majority of the hackers out there are going to be using the free and open source tools. They're not going to be using the commercial license versions because of the price and the cost. Yes, they might have nation state backing and things like that, but they'll usually invest that money in other things than running an automated tool framework. So this will be our first lab, the Hacking Toolkit. In this lab, we're going to explore the Hacking Toolkit.
We hope you enjoyed this short preview. If you'd like more information on the growing list of Online Sensei Series courses, then head over to SecureNinja.com/Sensei Series. I'm Alicia Webb. Thanks for watching.
SecureNinjaTV is brought to you by SecureNinja.com, a world leader in cybersecurity training and certification. Our master instructors will help build you into a highly skilled and marketable security professional. SecureNinja, forging cybersecurity experts.